So my name is Jaden Dicopoulos. I am a data scientist and AI specialist here at Analytics at Wharton. This is my workshop on coding with copilots. So AI has become, incredibly successful and powerful in the last year, and it's been dominating conversations when it comes to the future of work. Now that the technology's been around for long enough, we are now seeing the products and applications of AI. So coding copilots are one of these applications. The pattern finding technology of the natural language processing can be applied to great accuracy when it comes to code because of the structure. So this workshop will go over my top choices of copilots and an interactive session on how to use one. So before I begin, I want to talk about the offerings from my department that we have for students. We run a program called the Analytics Accelerator. It is where we create student teams, student consulting teams at all levels to tackle business problems for major companies. So we would like to also expand to the AI space with this program as well. But yeah, you can just broaden your analytics skills with a month-long session, work with real corporate partners, a Wharton mentor, and develop some highly marketable skills through hands-on experience with the latest tools in programming language and data analytics. And yeah, it's just a great way to get exposure and work with real business problems and real companies. So I'll link at the bottom, link below, but yeah, just Analytics at Wharton. And here's some of the companies that we've worked with in the past. Currently we're working with Zillow and IKEA and Align and a couple of others. But yeah, it's just a great way to get actual data analysis work on your resume. So some other offerings, we have online modules. So these are quick mini courses. So if you're want to brush up for a course on Python or R or something, we have great online modules for that. Also, my previous workshops are on there. So learning about OpenAI and ChatGPT is a precursor to all AI. And then some more upcoming workshops. All this is listed on the website. I won't go through all of this. I'm teaching another workshop at the Wharton Tech Club conference, also about AI. Yeah, everything can be found on the website. All right, so AI. So who here has used any kind of AI, like ChatGPT, DALL-E, show of hands, who's used AI in some way? Okay, so now it's everybody. Before, last semester when I asked that question, it was half. So now everyone's been using it. So who's used a coding copilot already? Okay, all right, so a couple. And then now, who here would be confident with creating a function in Python? So any kind of coding knowledge. Okay, great, excellent. Hopefully we can get way more hands up after this. All right, so on the agenda today, we're going to learn just about coding copilots, where they came from, why we need them, why they're so prevalent now, what it is, and then we're going to go for these different. So I picked these four. You probably noticed, or maybe some people noticed, that originally the title said code interpreter. That is now advanced data analysis. OpenAI loves to find out when I have workshops and wants to change the titles on me. So GitHub Copilot and Codeium. And then we're going to talk about integration, so where these actually sit, who's the audience for each one, and then your coding environment and use. So yeah, just figuring out more of, where and how you're going to use it for the type of audience that, you are. Our hands-on activity, and then questions and answers afterwards. So, what is a coding copilot? Coding copilot is a tool or software assistant that aids developers in writing code. It can provide suggestions, help in debugging, or even automate certain parts of the coding process. So yeah, it's just a new tool that we've been able to generate with the help of AI, and the AI is really good. Or what's happening is that natural language processing and GPT, all it means is that we've become really good at creating a system that is good at pattern finding, and code is just an excellent place for those patterns. It's very structured and rigid. It's all predictive text, so when it sees something beforehand, it knows what's coming next. Also, I got DALL-E 3 access last night. I've been bragging about it. All my pictures are from DALL-E 3 now. So why do we need a coding copilot? So Stack Overflow. So if you've ever had a coding problem or any kind of problem, you copy and paste it, you throw it in Google, you see what happens. You're gonna land on like a forum post somewhere, kind of a thing. So Stack Overflow is noticing a significant drop in questions because people are not use it or do not need it anymore because we have these AI copilots where they'll be able to answer questions purely from what they have already in their systems. So it's crazy. So GitHub did a study with 95 developers, and it cut their time in half. So if I told you, I could you could do your homework in half the time, you would use that, right? And even then, it has a higher completion rate. So 78 people actually finish the task, and 70 people finish the task over here. But still, being able to do it in 55% less of the time is amazing. It's incredible, and it's able to just write efficient code, reduce bloat in your code. It's just all over, just a great technology. So before I talk about anything more with AI, it's always important to talk about bias, privacy, transparency, and the ethics of this technology. With any new technology, it should be talked about. So for bias, these AI systems can reflect the biases that they're trained on. You're going to see it a little less in code, but maybe you've seen it with everyone here who's used ChatGPT at least, or something like that. But it's going to be trained on certain text, and it's going to have some sort of bias and some sort of line that's drawn somewhere by the developers, by the people who created it, for what they want to be, regurgitated out. They don't want to get in trouble, pretty much. There's OpenAI's got in enough trouble. They don't want to get any more trouble. So there is a bias. There's, these biases in training data can lead to flawed code suggestions, perpetuate stereotypes, favor prevalent methods. So, there's certain methods in code that you want to do, but, maybe it won't know it because it's not what it's trained on. But yeah. And privacy. So this is number one. If it says it's free, and this applies to a lot of things, if it says it's free, you're paying for it somehow, the number one way that these AI tools work is if it's free, you're paying for it they're using your data, they're using the code that you're writing with, they're using your information somehow. So it's always make sure that whatever you're using, just if you're working for a company or anything like that, you're sure that whatever you're working with is okay to be, maybe fed into one of these models. But the scary thing is that there's not a lot of governance around this right now. So it's all up in the air. But so yeah, definitely be worried about, any of your inadvertently exposing yourself to any of these models. So transparency. So it's really important to be honest about AI's influence in your work. How often now are you going through looking at things online, scrolling through Instagram, and you're looking at something and you're going, is this AI generated? Did a bot make this? Because it reduces the quality, and you don't trust it anymore, kind of a thing. But if we're transparent with it, and we're showing our process, we're showing what's going on, we're going to feel a lot better about the actual content of the work. And the other part about transparency is these systems are obviously super complex, and you have companies like OpenAI that are getting audited by the European Union, and they're failing because they're not telling us what they're training their models on, because they know they're going to get in trouble because it's mostly copywritten information. So this lack of transparency is going to erode trust in these systems. So we just really need to make sure that, and now they're getting better with it, but yeah, making sure that we're more transparent about our work. And the last thing is ethics. So we obviously we want to be able to enhance what we're doing already, but we don't want this to devalue human expertise or take people's places in their jobs. One of the most common questions that I get teaching any of this is, oh, so this is going to replace me in the future, or oh, should I be worried? And it's just when the calculator is invented, you didn't fire all of your everyone doing your taxes and stuff. You're like, oh, now I can do my taxes. It's just no, you give a calculator to the guy who's doing your taxes. Now he's doing 30 other people's taxes. So while it is increasing efficiency, we need to make sure that we're taking into account that the ethics questions of this, the job implications that it has. And we also don't want this to perpetuate any kind of biases we have. So the systems that are being built, we don't want them to be built with these biases and then have those be perpetuated throughout, the life cycle and then end up, having negative consequences down the line. So yeah, so once again, this is something I always have to want to clear up when it comes to anything with AI. All right, so now we're going to start using these coding copilots. So what are the advantages? So boilerplate code creation. If you've ever seen, like in movies or anything, or if you know coding, there's a lot of lines where there's the structure. It's like a box, a wall of text. They're called wrappers, and it's just pretty much like everything that you have to do to make sure that your code flows in a certain way. Boilerplate code creation is that, like, coding copilots are great for this. You can create like the entire block for you, and you can put everything that you need to in the actual meat of it. So a lot of that structure and stuff is just made a lot easier. Multiple coding languages. Pretty much every coding language that is like relevant today. Most of these copilots have, and you can like reference and use. And then like overall, so the research and learning that can be done from these, so you don't even need to be using it to code. You can just be using it to like understand code better and how to be a better coder just by going through like a ChatGPT interface, just asking questions like, how do we even write a for loop? What's going on? Like even then, like posting in code or pasting in code and just saying, hey, what does this mean? So it's a great tool for researching and just learning. Bug fixing, the thing I use it the most for. Putting in your bug, why is this not working? What's going on here? And it will give you a step-by-step analysis of like, okay, well, let's see, and change this, maybe write this in instead. It's wonderful for that. Went over explanations, and then commenting and note-taking. It doesn't just, like, you're not just asking a question and getting an answer. You're getting an answer and an explanation. And that's why this is just so powerful. And we can't talk about the advantages without talking about the disadvantages. So, number one, reliance. You have to still be able to understand what's going on underneath of it a little bit, and you don't want to become too reliant on this, because one, it's changing all the time, and two, you just you never want to be take too much into account what it's saying, what it's telling you, because it might not be correct, and so it might not be, so number two, up to date. So a lot of Python packages and things, like a lot of cutting edge technology, it's coming out so fast. These models and systems are sometimes trained up to 2021. Like there's Python packages that are out now that came out in 2022 that I use today. So it has no idea what it's talking about when it comes to very up-to-date technology. So difficult prompt engineering. If you think it's already hard enough for me to put things into words, imagine trying to put words into code and asking the proper questions and making doing the proper prompts. It's very difficult to just get into the specifics that you need to ask the questions for the answer that you need to get from the model. So it also can be pretty expensive. So I love giving out the free alternatives, but a GitHub license right now, or GitHub for GitHub Copilot is $10 a month, which is a lot. ChatGPT 4 is $20 a month. Plus, if you're using the APIs, if you're an actual developer, we're running a project that for 20 minutes every day, it's one class that's using it, is $40 every day. So it gets very expensive and can add up. And it's also just not widely accepted yet. Not everyone's using it because everyone's still scared about, is this using my data? Some of the projects that we're running, we're having complications with, there's just no governance about it, no laws, anything like that. So, it's just the overall security risk. Not sure where your data is actually going, things like that. So, all right, so future trends. So, that security and everything like that is going to be, people are figuring it out, and the best way to do it is companies are just going to create their own versions, their own models, and they're going to figure out how to make all this stuff, by themselves, so they have a self-contained system. Thankfully, it's actually not too hard to run a model nowadays, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, so just companies, working in-house on what they're doing. So free and open source models are going to are setting the standard for everything. Why the hell are you paying $20 a month when there's something that's free, out there that's doing the same exact thing and more? So all those paid software and all the paid companies are going to have to catch up to what's free, because obviously, you're not going to pay all that money, and features too. So and privacy. Obviously, with this one, more accurate and simplified code. The ChatGPT I used, a year ago is not what it is today. It is so much better. It is, incredibly capable, and it's just going to keep getting better and better. And I don't see any signs of it, slowing or stopping. Actually, I read in the news recently that I think it's like Microsoft is trying to buy a mini reactor to power their new systems. So yeah, it's crazy. Cross-language support. So I know Python. That's all back end, but I want to know Java, and I want to learn about figuring out how to actually make a front-facing website. It's just going to get better at being able to do just between the two languages. Figuring out how to transfer your skills from one to the other. Stuff like that. So then the next is just full project assistance. So we're going to see today in the interactive session, it's a lot of line by line suggestions. So you still can't. It's not going to be like make me a video game. It won't just make the entire system of code. It's going to be like, all right, well you have to start here and you have to do things line by line. But in the future, maybe it is just as simple as that. Make me a website, make me this. And it's all in one go. The last one, and it's the one that I'm hoping for the most, but visual programming and design integration. So not having to deal with typing everything out and doing the actual structure of everything, but being able to have an actual interface that you can be I just want the means of these two tables, or I want to work on this, or let's move this stuff over. But visual programming, I think would be great. All right. So questions so far on anything AI? This is when OpenAI went down one day, and it was hilarious to me, and I took a quick screenshot. All right, so we're going to move on. So what are my options? So ChatGPT, advanced data analysis. Oh, so yeah, like I said, code interpreter is now advanced data analysis. Why they made that change, they said it's just the name. Well, actually, we'll get into it. So, the GitHub Copilot and Codeium. All of these options, I'm going to be a little bit more biased towards one, but all these options, I believe, have a purpose for someone out here in here in this room. Some are going to be good for others. Some are going to be worse. It's up to you to decide which one's the right one for you. But I think all of these are great. The other ones, so for instance, Code Llama that's out there. There's two other interpreters. Code Llama's hilarious. I don't know what they're doing. It took me forever to get access, and I was like, all right, well, there's no way I'm putting it in this then. So, but yeah, so it's just I think these four are the best. But we'll see whatever one works the best for you. So starting off with ChatGPT 3.5 and 4. So 3.5 is free. It's a great way to get started. It does everything that it needs to. It does the code generation. It does debugging. It does a great job at explanations. It's a great way of getting your foot in the door with it. GPT-4 offers a substantial increase in intelligence and unlocks plugins that increase its capabilities, but then you're paying that $20 fee. So yeah, and it's just a great tool to use for learning because it teaches you as it creates the outputs. So we'll see with the other coding copilots, they get a little bit hairy because you're actually in the coding environment when it's being used. But when you're in the ChatGPT interface, it writes, it says, hey, I'm doing this because of this, or we're going to do this because of this. So it's just a great way to learn. And then the code itself is interactable, so it segments it. It's just really well structured. But the problem with ChatGPT is it's unable to run the code, so it's telling you what to do, but it's not going to run it. And I'm sure, as we all know as well, AI can hallucinate, so it'll say, "Oh, just run this line; it'll work great." And then you put it into your environment, and it doesn't. So, but then you can go in and, just like I said, you can talk to it and say, "Hey, this line didn't run. Can we work with that, or can you tell me about that?" And you can keep running with it. And so the target audience for this is just people who want to just learn coding. Just learn coding in the actual the basics and just the most interactive way possible. Low barrier to entry. You can just get in there and immediately start figuring things out. So I have a quick example of this. So I asked a question. So I said I have multiple files in CSV form that I need to merge together. So how do I do that with pandas? So pandas is a widely used Python library for data structure. Yep. So you hit send, and it goes right ahead. So 3.5 is also very fast. 4 is a little slower, but that's because it needs a little bit more time to cook. But yeah, so it just tells you what to install. You know, it's all separated. Gives you a little copy code thing. I'm sure like everyone has seen this already at this point. Yeah, so you go, and there's there's everything I need to run this code. But being the good data scientist that I am, and also being lazy, I saw that it wants me to read each individual file in one line of text. So no way I'm going to do that if I have 1,000 files, right? So talk to it like a human being, and I say, hey, there's 1,000 of these files. Like, I'm not doing that line by line. Is there a better way to do that? And then immediately gives me a function to do that, and reiterates on itself. So obviously incredibly powerful. This is the very early way of getting into it. I ask it another niche question, but it's as simple as that, like following the instructions. It gives it to you piece by piece, and it's just a great way of learning. So yeah. All right. So OpenAI's Advanced Data Analysis beta for ChatGPT. It's its own in-house plugin that it has. It sits on top of GPT-4. It said it was the only change was to the name, but it's also around the time that OpenAI got in trouble for their web search. I don't know if everyone remembers that. So OpenAI got in trouble for web search because you could look up some things, but then it would also hallucinate at the same time and say some incorrect stuff. So they got in trouble overall, and I think there's been a slight decrease in intelligence with it, but it's still the forefront of technology. The great thing about this is you can import a data set. So if you have a CSV, like an Excel sheet or whatever, you can actually import it into OpenAI, which is they're like, oh, great data, sure, we'll take it, So, but you can put it in there and start prompting it, asking it questions about your data. And additional plugins will also allow you to increase the performance and capabilities. Notable is great. It actually creates a Python notebook for you in there. So while ChatGPT isn't writing or making the code, other plugins will help you, and you move to their websites and things like that. Notable's the number one. And the target audience is people who want to get more complex answers. You use 3.5. You have a class and you're figuring out that it's you need it to be a little bit better, and you don't mind paying $20, and you have wanted to do a little bit more. Then this is for you, and it's great. So I actually don't have a demo for this one, just purely because every one that I made, I felt like would become obsolete in 2 weeks, because this is the part that's cutting edge. OpenAI, all the plugins that are coming in, everything like that. This is where I believe that there's the most space for growth. It's constantly learning and changing. So this is also where if you want to be in the now of it, I think this is also a great place to start. So GitHub Copilot. So it integrates into your coding environment and has a chat window. So now if you're actually coding, you have your IDE, Visual Studio Code, PyCharm up, you're actually starting to code. It has everything in there, and it creates suggestions. It draws context from your previous code and comments, and then puts it into your future prompting. And it's also just backed by the 3 biggest companies ever. It's backed by Microsoft, OpenAI themselves, and GitHub. So they have the whole entire GitHub library. They use all the public repositories. It's the biggest Copilot out there. If you're going to search it, it's going to it's always going to pop up with GitHub first. And yeah, it has the most room to grow. So while I think it's not the best right now, and you should see the reviews on the app itself, it has the backing of billions of dollars. So they're going to put as much money as they need into it to make it work. So they won't let it fail. And the target audience for this is people who believe in a long-term investment and don't mind paying the fee to protect their data and code a little bit more. It's really funny when they have, at first it was only the one $10 sub, but now they have a $20 sub. That's the business one where they're well, the first one's oh yeah, we'll protect your data. And the next one's we'll really protect your data. It's just all right, well, I don't know about that one. So this is what it looks like in your actual IDE. So you create a comment, pretty much just a line of text that doesn't change or move, or doesn't affect the code. And then what you're seeing is when it grays out like that, that's a completion. So that's when it actually comes together and it says, okay, I know what this is, and you can hit tab, and then it just writes the whole thing for you. So we'll see it again. So here, even then, in the first line, it will be able to do it. And you can continue typing if you don't want to have it replace everything exactly. And also you can do a cool thing where, all right, well, this is kind of what I want to do. You can also filter through the suggestions. You can go, all right, go again. It's just like, nah, I don't know about that one. And you can keep refreshing through until you find what the right one is, or the one that you would like to use. So yeah, it's incredibly powerful. Also, GitHub's a little bit slower on the slower end, so sometimes like you'll type something, and we're going to see that today as well. You're going to type something and you don't get anything, and it's just because, is it because it doesn't know what to write, or is it because that, it takes time to process this? It's not instant, so sometimes you have to give it time to think, but also you might need to push it a little bit more. Yeah, all right, so get to the point. So Codeium, this is my, I'm going to say right up front, this is my personal bias. This is the free version. This thing is great. This is the best one for me. I use this in Visual Studio Code. That's my environment, how I code. Same deal where it has a chat window on the side that you can interact with, but also does code completions within your code. It draws context just like GitHub, and it supports more languages and IDEs. So GitHub doesn't have, so if you do everything in like Google Colab or anything like that, Codeium has the extension for it, which we're using today. GitHub is only within like an actual like real coding environment or IDE. And even though it's free, it does give you that option to opt out of sending your data back to the model. How good this is we'll see. But yeah, so it's just the target audience is anyone who's in tech and is a little bit more coding savvy because you need a actual coding environment. You're actually running code, but they want to use a tool that will enhance their abilities. It's this most, I think, easiest way to actually get started with coding. And same example, but you're going to notice pretty quick, it's a little bit faster. And figures it out a little bit quicker. Once again, I don't want to scare anyone off. You don't need that much coding knowledge for what we're doing. We're not doing anything like this, but you'll see. Yep, boom. First, that's the correct answer, by the way, and it got it the first try. A lot faster. All right, so like I was saying, if you're using, Visual Studio Code, the JetBrains projects, which is PyCharm, anything like that, then you're going to be using GitHub or Codeium. But if you're using stuff in browser, if you're using like a Jupyter Notebook or Google Colab, then it's all in Codeium. It's Codeium only has a plugin for that. That might change in the next, knowing that it could change in a week, and this is also an emphasis on Python coding. Obviously, like this stuff, also all these work as well for Java if you're doing any other kind of scripting, but this is with an emphasis on Python. All right, so let's jump into the interactive session. So it's a lot easier, obviously, to type the tiny URL, but it's going to lead everyone to the same Google Colab notebook. Also, actually, while we're all transitioning, anyone have any questions? Oh, also, all the slides are going to be online as well as a recording. So yeah, don't worry about taking pictures and stuff. You'll have all these slides, no problem.
I had a
absolutely.
question. So what do all these advancements in coding copilots and AI technology imply for students or individuals who are trying to learn like traditional code programming skills? It seems like being able to code and program on your own is no longer that big of a competitive edge now that we have all these automations and they're pretty accurate.
Yep.
So what do you think the implications are? And is there anything else we should strategically focus on rather than just learning how to code?
Yeah, so, and it's I don't have the perfect answer for this, obviously, because this is the general. This is what everyone's asking right now. Is what is the implication of this? Now, everyone here, everyone in this room, has an amazing assistant that is going to help you learn and grow and create, great code. But the thing is, and my answer to this is, we need to be able to have the groundwork ourselves to be able to get the help from the assistant. You need to be able to ask the right questions. You need to be able to be in the know, and up to date. It's mostly that's the best way. And kind of what I said before about the calculator and the person doing your taxes. You're only as powerful as you can be with knowing being able to ask the right questions. You need to answer your question, go wide and figure out how to be a good question asker and. I don't know, just really be able to dig into it. It is it's a very difficult question. So,
That makes sense.
yeah, I mean, just learn as much as you possibly can. Everyone being able to do it. There's a difference between everyone being able to say that they can do it now that this tool exists, and it's just I can learn, I'll trust to do it. But then when you actually get to the job and you're actually doing these things, it's completely different when you have to actually apply it.
Right.
So maybe the better answer is don't focus on so much of the process, and maybe it's the final product. So saying here, because that's what matters to people that are looking to hire people is that what can they actually get into production? So maybe actually it's having final products instead of base understandings.
Yep. Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions? All right. So we're going to jump right into it. I'm also going to do it along with everybody else. So anyone that doesn't want to do it, let's see. Any other questions? Feel free to email me. And then email here. And if anyone wants to take a quick survey, just a brief evaluation of the workshop, go ahead and send some feedback in. It would be greatly appreciated. And yeah, thank you so much for coming.